the way I typically start out a VOD review is by asking the student if there's anything that they were doing, their team was doing, or the enemy team was doing that was giving you particular trouble. So in your case, like the recording anxiety, but is there anything else?
Well, their Widow gave me a little bit issues, and then the second DPS actually. Like they didn't really pick things that would help in a sense. Like they played a
Are you talking about your team?
yeah, the one trick guy. Um
Okay.
like he picked Hanzo when I picked Widow, and then we struggled with it. And yeah.
First point, Hanamura is not the best double sniper like point, but it is workable. It's probably one of the hardest ones actually. Now that I think about it, but in this, I think that Hanzo does better on Hanamura. At least point A. Point B, Widow does better, but uh, it depends a ton on your positioning. So we'll see, like how that actually plays out. But other than just
Well, hey,
the other
if I play
DPS dude
anything,
that you weren't a fan of, is there anything else?
I could play Ryan. It's just
Um and I feel like they were also just talking a lot. I couldn't really focus on shots.
You can just
no,
leave
I
team
gotta play
chat.
Ryan, dude.
Like
True.
if if you're one of those people who doesn't, so
I,
I'll pause it here. I'll go off on a little tangent before we even get into the gameplay part. Team chat is probably the most overrated part of competitive Overwatch. For two simple reasons. Everybody thinks you need it, and nobody knows how to deal without it, even when it doesn't benefit them at all. Like the people who I like, there's people like you who said you can't focus with your shots when there's people talking. And then there's people who say that like they're losing games because nobody will join team voice or like my team won't communicate. And I would like to say that is like not the case at all. If unless you're somebody who A benefits from calls, B makes calls, or C are in a team that is actually making calls, like whether you benefit or not, like you don't need team voice. So like if you're a support player who climbs by shot calling super well, then I can understand your frustrations with it. But in your case, I would just leave team voice since like if somebody calls like Widow half, would you like process that information quickly enough to like make use of it?
Probably not because when I'm Widow, I need to know the other Widow's position before I just like boldly jump in like where is she?
Yeah. So in your case, you're probably better off out of voice because it seems like it's causing you more harm than it is good.
I just would like to
That's
play Ryan,
unfortunate.
please.
Like
Let
your
her
team
play
does seem
rectangle man.
especially vocal, even in this little middle bit. If a team's vocal, that doesn't necessarily mean you should leave. But if they're vocal with stuff that isn't important, then you can leave. If somebody's giving useful calls, like Mercy half or like somebody's flanking or stuff like that, or like if they tell you where the enemy Widow is, that's probably the call that you're most interested in, other than people who are half. If they're making calls like that only, I suggest you stay in and try and get used to implementing them into your play. But if they're just saying like, "How did I die there?" or like, "Kill Ryan 600 times in a row," or "We need this swap," or just random banter too, like, just get out of there. Save
Sorry,
yourself the
she can
time
bot
and
out on Reinhardt.
your time and trouble. Like this dude
The
talking about
banter,
botting out. Like, hmm?
the banter was just me and
Oh yeah.
that one guy
Now
going
I'm
back
gonna
and forth the
bot.
whole game.
What do you think I've been
press
doing?
left shift and I'm gonna run right into their team.
Like
She
you're
is right.
Ryan, especially. Like I remember when it's this VOD. I'm so stupid. Like the duo, right? Like these
Yeah,
two,
the duo.
the two that just talk constantly. That drives me nuts. I would leave voice
How do you think
immediately
I
if
play
they
this game? You
like
think I look at my monitor? No.
like
No,
that
no,
kind
no,
of stuff.
I
Yeah,
put
it's funny when the game's going or like when the game's not going, but when
I
it
have better-
actually gets like up and running, if they're still doing that, I suggest you just peace out of there.
Oh, and
What do you
then
wanna fight me?
I also have latency issues, which I can't really control. And then
I
I
mean, I
could
see 47, and that doesn't look that bad. Does it
uh
fluctuate?
it it likes to go to 80, then go back down, then 5 minutes later it goes back up. It got me killed a couple times.
Okay. Do you have an Ethernet cable run directly or you over Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
Okay, that's probably why. If you can run a cable directly, so like you've got your router, right, and then you've got your PC. If you can just run a cable straight between the two, then you'll get rid of those ping drops because the ping drops are caused by just random Wi-Fi just like pissing itself. So there's not a whole lot you can do to prevent that other than just like get this cable. Depending on, sometimes it's not really reasonable. Like if it's 3 rooms away and on a different floor, uh, that's a problem. but you can potentially move the router closer and then put a little cable. It just depends. That'll solve your ping issues though. At least like going from like 50 to 80, it's annoying, especially for Widowmaker. Like it's a shame that you're playing the one hero that probably gets hit the hardest by it, other than like McCree. But you know, it's workable. I'll try and see how frequently it fluctuates, because it would drive me insane too.
Go in fast.
So the pick on the Genji,
That was the luckiest thing I could have done.
the fact they didn't deflect you is awesome for you. You hesitated a bit. I don't know whether you were seeing if he was going to insta deflect or not, but
Yeah, I was wondering if he was going to.
waiting that little second, you could have tapped him instantly, but I think waiting is fine here. It's not the biggest deal. But the Zarya is the bigger thing. Like, you spend a lot of time lining it up. I don't like right here. You're good enough. By the time you click, you'll pretty much be at full charge. So, I don't know why you delayed there. Is it just to line it up?
Yeah, because I'm the kind of person that when I play Widow, I want to secure the kill as fast as possible.
Okay, so let me ask you this. There's basically two types of Widows, right? There's ones who fire like 1,000,000 shots and land like one of them. And then there's Widows that fire one shot and land it and then don't do anything else. Which one are you more like?
I have to say the second one.
I figured. They're both sort of extreme circumstances, but in my opinion...
I went from being a far one trick to playing hit scan in like a matter of days.
Okay, so it's weird because if you played Pharah, then I'd expect you to be this style more than the other one. But I think that the style on the left is better because, in my opinion, if you fire a lot of shots rapidly, there's an increased chance that one of them will hit. If you fire them really slowly, then if you miss one and it doesn't end up being a hit, then that's a considerable chunk of your time. Like in this case against the Zarya, right? You spent a lot of time lining up that shot, and you were a little bit off, or you got damaged so it kicked up, or you choked it, or whatever, right? Doesn't matter how at this point. All that matters is that the time you invested into lining up that shot didn't end up paying off. So it would have been better to see the Zarya, get to your comfortable charge zone, which is basically like 60% or 60% or more, and then fire off as soon as, if you can get a full charge headshot off, go for it. But you don't want to spend time lining it up like you do, because you're going to end up, you're investing too much of your resources, in this case time, into that one shot. I'm not saying to just like spam left click all the time, but I think it's better to take more shots than it is to, you know, it's like the saying of you miss every shot you don't take, that whole, like, you see it on your high school wall everywhere. It's one of those.
What's the G, by the way?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I just play Widow really weirdly.
It seems like, I don't know, we've only, how far are we into this? Like 12 seconds? It seems like you play really slowly and methodically. I'm not sure how it'll turn out now that there's like more people to focus on, but in general, you can be slow and methodical on Widow. That's fine. Your aim doesn't need to be all over the place, but again, as long as you're not sacrificing time for shots, right? Like as long as, if you're not, I don't really know how to explain the difference between, I mean, it's 12 seconds in. I don't know exactly, but
Can this McCree stop moving? I don't know how to.
And here we have me hoping and praying.
I was gonna say, your Hanzo right here.
Can this McCree stop moving? I don't know how to aim.
Like that sort of thing is what would get me out of voice. Like I don't care if you can't hit this McCree. You ended up killing him anyway. I don't care. Like don't tell me that stuff. But aside from that, this bit right here, it seems like you're struggling to figure out who to shoot because you're presented with a lot more targets than you're ready for, and then B, when you did decide who to shoot, you still were a little unsure about it and you only half committed. Is that sort of what happened?
Yeah, because I was wondering if a support was going to peek me or like just fly through or something.
Okay, so this is like one of those times where you've got your support right here, but you know you've also got a free McCree. So I would at this point immediately go for the McCree because he's at this point your best option, because Brigitte has her shield up. It's not broken. She can bash out of your line of sight or keep it up or get Zarya bubbled. But McCree's in the back. He's behind. He's really slow. He's really free headshot. So once you've established, okay, I'm going to hit this McCree, the way you aim to him is a little wonky. It seems like it's like McCree's here. He moves over here. Your crosshair moves over there. and then he moves, and then you end up clicking sort of just in this general direction. I'll just like play it back again so you can maybe see what I'm talking about. So the way I suggest aiming for Widow, aside from just doing like aim training and muscle memory, is if this is your screen, right, and there's a person here and your crosshair is down here, instead of trying to go for a straight up flick like that, I suggest you do it in 2 stages, like a get in the general vicinity flick and then a little micro flick to wherever you're actually going to go. Because if you're trying to go for a huge flick, like the green line here, the odds of you messing it up are huge. Like, imagine taking a really big step down like a flight of stairs and you skip like 5 steps. You might do that, but you also might like mess it up, lose your balance, do the splits, fall down the stairs, whatever. But if you skip 2 stairs at a time, or, you know, just go down normally, then you're safer, you're more consistent, you're reliable, and you're actually faster. So if you get used to flicking in their general direction and then micro flicking, then eventually you can get that into one fluid motion. So your red line would get, and we'll go back to red here. Your red line would get surprisingly close, and then your orange line would basically just be a continuation. So it looks like one fluid movement, but you got to that one fluid movement by practicing 2 or sometimes like 3. You know, if you need to go like here and like, I don't know, go back to red, go back over to here, and then blue or whatever, you go to here, like whatever. I missed the blue. Case in point, I don't know what other Widows do as their aiming style. There's a bunch of different techniques, but for most cases where you have to end up flicking, I think this is the best possible way to do it, because doing a micro flick is a lot easier and a lot more consistent than doing a huge flick. Plus, you don't like, you remove your reaction time, you remove their strafing time, you remove as many variables as you possibly can. That was a really long-winded explanation, but does that all make sense?
Yeah. I just struggle with some hitboxes more than others.
Which hitboxes?
McCree, Tracer, Genji, Brig, Moira.
Okay, Brig, Moira, and Tracer all make sense. McCree and what was the other one?
Genji.
McCree and Genji. McCree should be pretty easy, in my opinion, because he's got a very defined, like, we'll go back a bit. We'll pause it when you can actually see, like, his hitbox, because we also get a Brig, too. McCree has a, like, Brig, that makes sense, right? There's just, like, kind of a glob there. Same with Reinhardt. Sort of the same with the Zarya, but McCree has a very defined, like, you can see the dark line there that the green just barely touches. That dark line is basically the outline of his head. So you just pop his hat and you're good. Genji, he's sort of similar. He's got, like, just this really slender body, and then his head, there's nothing, like, it's basically characters with no neck are really difficult. And in this case, McCree doesn't really have a neck, but there's the dark outline there. So the technique for Genji, a lot of Widows seem to struggle with him, but I think he's one of the easier ones to hit, honestly, is because you know how Genji's double jump all the time, and like that's people's biggest problem? Like,
Yep.
you wait for the second jump, and then as soon as he second jumps, he's now put himself in the world's most predictable movement pattern ever. And so you just need to get practice in of dinking him out of it. Like, it gets difficult when he's like Lucio speed boosted or something, but that's not super duper common. So it's sort of like, I think people struggle a lot with Pharahs, but I personally like Pharahs because they're in the air, and unless they're really good at air strafing, they're typically pretty predictable and easy to hit. So it's another tactic. Like, I have to explain to some students that jumping isn't, or, you know, just normal jumping isn't a viable strafing tactic, because you can AD strafe and you're super unpredictable, right? As soon as you jump, the enemy knows generally, you can air strafe a bit, but generally where you're going to be. So if the Genji's double jumping like this, right? As soon as I see him do the second jump, I can just place my crosshair here and wait for him to land in it and then just pop him. And like, if I decide to do the double flick, I can flick this general area, and then whenever he crosses my crosshair, do a micro flick either forward or like backwards to just account for how far he is in the like jump parabola, right? So characters with no necks, super difficult, but characters that jump, or players I should say who jump, super nice. Like, that's another reason why grapple shotting an enemy Widow is a terrible idea, unless you need to do it to get a crazy sightline on them, because you grapple up, and as soon as the enemy Widow sees you above this point, boom, that's the same parabola. It's super easy for them to track you there, and you're still trying to track them while they're like strafing all over on the ground. So-
Yeah, you're gonna see me fail at jump shotting a lot.
I'm more than happy to point out some techniques for that too, but in this case, it seems like you're
Stop
overwhelming
moving, I
yourself.
don't-
Do you do aim training at all?
I go into practice range and I do Ana bots.
Okay. Autobots is probably the better of the two because practice range, the bot hitboxes are, basically this big on your screen. So it's fun to like, the only thing I suggest the training range for is warming up like 180s and like 90-degree flicks because that is consistent no matter what hitbox you're trying to hit. It's just the degrees that you're trying to turn. So don't go for like headshot train, like, cause if I haven't warmed up at all, I just get home from school, I've got Parkinson's, like my fingernails are 6 inches long and I can't hold my mouse. I'll still be headshotting bots in the training range because they've got a huge hitbox. They're really predictable. There's a ton of good angles in the practice range. And there's no cover. Anabots are better, but they don't move like real people, and it trains you to keep your crosshairs too low because, Anabots are like this tall and they're always crouching to scope in, and so they're like 3 inches off the ground. And that means you'll end up body shotting somebody when it comes like trying to hit a McCree, right? You're aiming for like his pecs rather than his head, just because your natural crosshair placement is low. You can even see right here, like your crosshair placement is low. So have you ever heard of like Aim Lab or Aim Hero?
Yes, I have Aim Hero on Steam.
Okay. Oh, sick. I suggest you put some time into that. Figure out what modes work best for you. In your case, I suggest like fast aiming, I think it's called. It's been a while since I've used Aim Hero. I use Aim Lab more now, but I suggest fast aiming. I suggest you crank it to as fast as you can go. You can start with the biggest target size there is, but for somebody like you who struggles to do like the micro flicking, if you just increase the speed at which you aim, then you'll end up getting the precision part faster. So like if you can go from aiming at this health pack to aiming like at this part right here quickly by doing like a close and then a little flick, then you can work on getting this little flick to be smaller and faster and everything like that afterwards. So crank the target size to be basically huge. It doesn't quite get that big, but like big, and then make the target like appearance speed as fast as you can manage for like a minute and a half or 2 minutes. Don't go longer than that because then your arm will start to burn. But that'll definitely help you with your speed and also get you in the habit of looking around all the time, which it seems like you're already doing.
Zarya's big.
I also just really have bad reflexes when it comes to Widow because I spent like 200 something hours on Pharah.
Why would that hurt your reflexes?
Because with Pharah, I only have to land two direct rockets are dead, and I don't really have to move.
Widow,
that
you gotta
much.
land 2 body shots and they're dead. Same thing. Like, I think Pharah requires almost better reflexes, if not the same, because if somebody's strafing this way and your crosshair's here, you need to lead your shot by this much, so you need to react faster. Widow, you just need to lead your crosshair to exactly here, wherever they're going to end up, instead of having to do the prediction and all that nonsense. So I think it's just that you think you have slower reflexes than you actually do. If that actually is the case, then the speed training, where you just click as fast as you can, that'll help for sure, because then you'll just be like, you're isolating as many variables as you possibly can. That said, I paused on this particular frame because this is a no-no. Get rid of Bloom on as many heroes as you can possibly tolerate it, because at this point, if I do this, right, and I were to like block out the rest of everything, where's the center of your crosshair? If you couldn't see those hit markers, you'd have absolutely no idea. Like, it gives you an idea of your spread, but you don't care about your spread. All you care about is your aim. And if you've got a target this big, it's a lot more difficult to place your crosshair on that target because they're literally in the void of your crosshair. So bring those bad boys closer together, like they are when you
I never
scope.
want to hear that phrase again.
Like at this point, if you've got a tiny little blob, you can tell. You can just put your crosshair on them and you're good. But having Bloom discourages accurate aim. It just encourages like lazier aim because like, I'm hitting him with, if this is my Bloom, right? There's a target like here. It's like, I'm hitting them with some of the Bloom. It's like, no, if your crosshair was here, you'd be missing them. You'd rather get that bad boy right in the center if you can.
Big
Yeah, I'll
This big.
change it when I get home later.
You know what's bigger? My storm arrow forehead.
the Zarya.
Again, these teammates. Oh god, I'd lose my shit. I couldn't do it.
Yana. Bully her. Aw, damn. she
Oh, you're
got
really
off.
gonna
Almost
hate him
hit the
here.
4K. Oh.
God, dude. Oh my God. I do hate them. I hate them so much. There was the spike, by the way. I could see them, like, jittering. So what these jitters mean, like, you see how they kind of go dirt, 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 like that? That is scarier because not only is your ping shooting up, but you're having a ton of packet loss, which is basically like, you know, you've got stuff leaving your PC and it's all information, and then some of it's just like missing because of Wi-Fi and all of its glory. So you can take a shot here and it'd land, here and it wouldn't even show up, and then here and it would land. So like again, in your case, if you're taking a slow methodical approach, then if you spend 5 seconds lining up a shot and it happens to coincide with a packet loss, then that shot's never going to happen to the enemy team, and then you're going to sit there like, what? Or if it does happen, there'll be a considerable delay as it gets picked up by the next like non-packet loss area. That is definitely not a technical explanation, but it's more
and my FPS, as you can see, that was jittering. Yeah, apparently I was overworking my PC, and yeah, it's fine now. The game was just like a couple days before I fixed it.
Are you talking about like a little drop to like 90?
Yep, and then it goes back up.
Okay, well, that's a little fluctuation of like 10 or 20 is fine. I wouldn't worry yourself with that. I'd be more concerned about the packet loss and latency. A slight FPS drop, like my FPS will fluctuate from like 200 to like 260, and I'm just used to it. So FPS drops and fluctuations a lot less important than the packet loss for sure. So at this point, right, you're playing the team-based Widow, which works, but the problem is that they've got a Reinhardt and a Zarya. And what that means for you is a lot of barriers to deal with, and that sucks. You don't want to spend time shield busting. That is not what Widow's made for. So you don't want to be, if this is the enemy team and this is your team, right, you don't want to be in your backline shooting through your team, A, because they block your vision, but B, because you've got all the shields to work with. So I've suggested this with pretty much every single DPS hero ever, but it's obviously worked for me, and I think it's the dominant play style is to basically play off angles. So this way, if there's a little support playing here, if you're playing backline Widow, you can't get to her, like, at all. But if you're on the side, then you can sneak around the shield and then get to her. You're not playing all the way in the back where the enemy team can just move back and kill you. You're playing the off angle so that they have to go forward and commit, which then leads your team to be able to take the off angle. It's a bunch of geometry there, but basically, if you look at Hanamura, right, if we pull up, let's see, am I lucky enough to have a good image? No, I'm not. We'll just use this one. So all of you guys are right over here. If you're peeking this doorway down over here, or hell, even way down over here, you can peek whoever is either in the back line right here, their supports, like a Zen or a Moira or whatever, or like if they have an Ana, like way back here or down here, you can pick them too for free, instead of having to trudge all the way with your team up through here, take this high ground, then look back down there. They're going to realize that they're going to move safer. Like, you can avoid all of this nonsense, right, by just going straight from the off angle.
Sorry, no personal.
It'll also make your shots a lot easier because they don't know you're there, so they can't strafe you as hard. So, like, the Ana could think she's safe and she's just standing still, and then you can just be like, boop, easy peasy. Plus, you get stuff like this where you get shattered with the rest of your team. If you're off on an off angle, the enemy team either has to commit to you at the off angle or to your team at the main choke. So you're forcing their attention to be divided. And if they give up and go for your team only, then you get to capitalize on that because they're not dividing their attention. If they go for you instead of your team gets to capitalize. So it's a win-win pretty much no matter what. That's why Hanamura point A, like I said in the beginning, is really hard for Widow because you can't really take an off angle. You can take that little like nook thing, but that's not really an off angle, and you can get forced off it really easily. Point 2 is a lot better. Point 2 is like Widow Haven.
Yeah, I don't really know why I set up back here with the team.
Yeah, if you're in a game, right, and you're like, oh, what did Elon say about this thing? If you don't remember, that's fine. But if you take away anything from any VOD review ever, it's to just think through everything you're doing. Even if you don't get a coach to tell you, like, do this or do that, if you question why you're doing something and you force yourself to justify it, you can generally figure out that it's a good or a bad decision. Like even if a bronze player who's not experienced or they're not super serious about the game or whatever, right? If they look at their decisions and say, was it a good idea to throw my diva bomb into the enemy spawn when nobody's there? You could be like, well, I did it because of these reasons, but it was bad because of these reasons, and it was good because of these. You'll end up with like the bad list of being huge, right? And then you'll end up with a good list of like maybe one thing, and it's like a potential. So if you're sitting behind your team as Widowmaker shooting a shield, you're like, well, why am I shooting this shield? To shoot at the supports in the back? Okay. What else could I do that? I don't know. Just take an off angle. Go to the side. Shoot around them. I have a VOD that's uploaded. It's both on this Twitch and on my YouTube or whatever. It was a fun VOD, but I had a Doomfist student who wanted to know how to self-review. And that VOD, whether you self-review or not, is pretty helpful because I try and explain what I do when I coach so that you can do it to yourself. Whether you review your own VOD or not isn't as important. As long as you can try and apply some of those principles in game, you're golden.
For sexual harassment.
What are they talking about? Sexual harassment?
Widow.
I think it was because the Ryan shattered.
Oh my god.
don't
Whatever,
know.
dude. Whatever. So in this bit, unfortunate grapple, sort of. What's your grapple sensitivity?
I keep it at like 100, I think.
I would crank that bad boy to like 70 or 75 or 80 because you'll be going to like grapple here, and if you're far enough away, it'll pull you over here or to this rock or like down to this well or like to this doorway. It's all over the place. So again, it's like if you've got a grapple size radius of that and you narrow it down to like that, that's going to force you to be more accurate at all times. Like in general, it's forcing you to be more accurate because you want to go, like if we go back to when you grappled, let's see where you actually were aiming to.
I'm gonna report him for sexual harassment.
See, in that case, you were pretty dead on. Like you were right where you wanted to be, but the grapple's like, like it looks like it's going there, but it's not. So, like,
Yeah.
part of that's
Grapples don't like me.
grapples don't like you because of the grapple sensitivity. If you fix that and put it down to like 70, I mean, 70 is just I think what I use, or maybe I use 80, but you can see. Boom. I'm gonna stop my own tangent here. Off angle. People not looking at you. I don't know who you're gonna go for here, but I go for the Anna first because she's keeping everybody alive.
Hey, watch this.
Yeah, I failed.
I mean, right there, you revealed yourself.
Widow.
It seems like you were kind of just like shoot somebody. But again, this is the part of Genji where this is where you're struggling, right? This is his double jump animation. He jumped and he double jumped, and you're trying to shoot him as soon as he's hitting this double jump where he's not as predictable because you don't know exactly how high he's gonna go. But as soon as he like finishes curling, that's when you can nail him, because right here, this is when you want to start getting him because his hitbox is more normal, right? His head isn't at his feet anymore, and his movement's gonna be, he's basically, if he's not jumping forward, he's jumping straight back down. Pretend the Anna wasn't there, you can still pick him after his little jumpy jump.
Hey, watch this.
Same thing applies like with Hanzo for his leap. You want to wait for him to burn that and then pop him as soon as you can.
No, they grab.
I mean,
Oh,
they use a lot of
I'm
overhead.
slept. I'm dead. I'm stuck.
Okay, so we'll talk about this a little bit. This is again one of those cases of you're trying to go for a longer flick.
I mean,
Oh.
You still didn't shoot yet.
Oh,
they use a lot of
You went for a longer flick.
I'm slept. I'm dead. I'm stuck.
So you were sort of doing the right thing, actually. I'm not going to say that it was totally wrong. You were basically tracking her and then trying to flick when she was predictable. That's exactly what you should be doing. I'm like, that was good. In theory, yes. In practice, it messed you up a bit because Anna's moving forward and backward on her screen, which is weird. She should be side-to-side strafing, but she's basically 80 strafing you. And 80 strafing is not something you want to try and flick to, just because you're trying to do with your reaction speed, your flicking speed, their strafing speed, their reaction speed, server ping, all of that. If somebody's 80 strafing in front of you, just put your crosshair in a certain spot that they're prone to 80 strafe through, in this case basically right where my thing is, and then just wait for them to walk into it. Like if you can offload the work of aiming to their movement and just worry on timing the click is something you'd have to do if you flicked anyway, but you're removing like about 6 million different possible causes of error. So if you're removing like error causing thing, I can't think of the word, variables, there we go. If you're moving variables, then you're making yourself more consistent, more accurate, and more effective in general. It's like, now the Genji's seen you, by the way, you can work on baiting out his deflect.
Season 12, by the way.
And then here we have, I don't know how I didn't die.
Because he gave up the chase, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that.
So right here, again, this is a prime example. Let's count. From scoping in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like 4.5 seconds, give or take. That's way too long. You could have fired like 3, 4, 5 really quick shots in there if you wanted to. Like, even if you were missing them, you'd at least be pressuring them, right? If you're just standing here, not shooting at them, but still aiming, they don't care. As soon as you start firing shots at them, that's when they care, right? Because a Widow who's just standing there, they think you're AFK, you're not looking at them or whatever. But if you're firing shots at them, you're pressuring them. Whether you're missing is, you'd rather hit them. But, if you're playing Widow and there's an enemy Widow who's just standing still, scoped in on Gibraltar, for example, across the map, you're going to take your sweet time to line up that shot, same as them. But if you remove that sweet time and just flick at them, then they just presented themselves to you. If you're trying to peek them and they're taking frequent shots at you, then you're going to feel less comfortable with that because they're pressuring you. Like, that feeling of pressure is exactly what you need to be giving to the enemy team. They need to be scared to peek you.
Having fun, by the way. Thank you, Lucio.
Go to me, go to me.
Hey, that's my job.
Another thing is you seem to be playing low ground a lot. Not only are you playing with your team, but you're playing low ground, which not what you want to do, especially on Hanamura Point 2 where you have plethoras of high ground, or a plethora of high ground. Take it. Even if you're on level ground, take it. The thing you don't want to be is a low ground Widow, at all costs, because high ground, everybody's like, oh, high ground's good. But why is high ground good? High ground's good for 2 major reasons, right? I'll explain it here just because, I'll lead into another tangent. But if you're on high ground, you can get line of sight to somebody who's on low ground, and all you have to do to break line of sight is just back off a bit. Like, they can't see you anymore, pardon the not straight line, but whatever, you get the point. They can't see you anymore, and all you did was walk a little bit back. For them to break line of sight, they have to go all the way back and down, or all the way back behind cover, or whatever, right? So you get to control when you're peeking, but it also lets you look at somebody's hitbox. So we'll erase that. You've got somebody's hitbox dead on like that. They're, above this point is head. If you're looking down on them, head's the same size, but their body's like that. So psychologically, it'd be like trying to hit their body becomes hitting their head, and hitting their head becomes hitting their body because it's the larger portion of their hitbox. So psychologically, it's easier. Like McCree, if you've got a down angle on McCree, like I said, his head takes up 20% of his total hitbox. That's nice. Whether it makes it easier to hit or not isn't the point. Psychologically in your brain, it does. If that makes sense, then I'll tangent over to another little bit of high ground Widow, which let me pull up another example of it here.
Yeah, I was mostly afraid to go on high ground because I saw the Ryan, and then I was afraid the McCree or something was with them.
That's a reasonable thing to be afraid of, but if Ryan's top right and you go top left, you don't have to worry about that Ryan. If he's up here shielding this little window, then he's either shielding his team, which is all back there, and that means your team gets a free pass on to point, or he's just shielding nothing and his team's sitting up on this high ground or back on point totally unshielded, and then that's perfect Widow time. So if I go back to this little bit, boom. So the other thing with Widow and Hanzo and McCree, mostly Widow though, most important with Widow, is what I've coined as the 2 corner rule, which basically means that you need to always, or as frequently as possible, have 2 separate ways to break line of sight with the enemy, which, is part of high ground, right? So you've got high ground. You've got this part right here to break line of sight with people below you. And then if you've got somebody on the same level as you, you can break line of sight with this wall thing, right? Or this wall thing. So if you're on this balcony area, you're in this general area or this general area, or even better is probably an example right here, right? You can use, we'll erase some of this, right? You can use this part of this walkway, perch, whatever you want to call it, to block line of sight with people down below. And for people up top or super far away, you can use the pillars. And that makes sure that you're safe from pretty much anybody so long as they're not right here. And even then, right here, if you're standing right here, you can just go back. Boom, you're good. So Widow is a ton of positioning, but if you follow the 2 corner rule, you'll end up being in the proper position more often than not. It's better than just me saying, okay, here's every single map. and then here's every single spot you want to be in. Like that's a waste of everybody's time. Just follow the rule and you'll pretty much be set.
We're coming.
Oh wait, I
we're
thought you said
coming.
hate myself. Never mind. Self-deprecation is different.
We need more healing. We don't have enough healing.
Wait, we grab? Why? Never mind.
There-
Then here we have. They
There's
killed
the
me.
there's the packet loss. Like watch this McCree,
We
dude.
grab? Why? Never mind. It's fine.
So you did the right thing of waiting for him to strafe into your crosshair, but he was sort of like, he was strafing this way, and you ended up putting your crosshair over there. Just, I mean, he was teleporting all over the place, so admittedly difficult to hit, but try and position your crosshair when they become predictable. In this case, you just mistimed it or mispredicted it. Totally fine. You've got the principle down, which is the important part.
I think. Hopefully.
Honestly, I could have tried
We get
crouching
we get
Oh, hey.
so he couldn't hit me, but yeah.
Yeah, and where
Wait,
even
we
were you?
grab? Why?
You're in a pretty decent
Never
spot.
mind.
Like at this point, you could have peeked like close to this bit. Did he just like insta dink you? What happened?
I think so.
Wait, we grab? Why? Never mind. It's fine.
Did he just? What? Did you get hit with a Genji Shuriken at the same time? Because he went from like 150 something
Wait,
to
we
like
grab? Why?
so 140, 154.
Never mind. It's fine.
How did he straight dome you?
I have no idea.
Am I stupid? That shouldn't have. Anyway, aside from the fact that I don't think you should have been one shot by this McCree. Don't know what happened. Presumably Genji. But if you peek this corner after you got hit once, you know where he's at in this general area. McCree's slow as hell. You can hear it hit, maybe. I can't hear it because I'm not paying attention, but probably. Just, you know, the fact he's there. But unfortunate timing. You peek this corner, you get hit once, and then you go back, and then you know where he's at. You charge up a little bit of a shot, peek out, and then pop him as quickly as you can with your new aim-trained aim, and bam.
Fine, I think.
Bob's your uncle. McCree's dead.
Touch the shield.
We get
Oh,
Ana.
hey.
Or I could have like stayed around that corner until my latency decided to like me again.
You can do that too, depending on if it's predictable.
edgy.
Like if does it happen in like bursts, like you said? Is every burst like the same length, or does it do stuff like that?
Well, it can be like 5 minutes, it goes to 80, and then it's like, oh hey, 3 seconds later, it goes to like 100, and then goes back down to 50.
Okay, so waiting it out, you can, you know, if you're feeling good, go for it, but you don't want to waste too much time waiting it out.
Or I'm
When you can just go for an aggressive peek, pop a shot, and if you don't get that one shot, I wouldn't peek again, because he knows you're there and he's
That one
expecting you
dude
to
with
peek.
The one name and the
You don't ever want to peek a corner like
The
more
raging
than
lesbian,
twice
yeah, that-
generally,
They have a lot
because then
more
you're
healing,
just
so-
setting yourself up to get clapped, because they can reposition more than you.
shouldn't have more healing than us.
Here we have
They're running,
They have an
Brig
Ana
saved
Brig.
my life.
running and Ana, period.
They will always.
Again, how many seconds is this?
They're
Well,
running.
let's see. We'll go
They
back.
shouldn't have more healing than us.
1, 2, 3. So it was like 2.5.
They're running,
1,
They have an Ana and a
2,
Brig.
3,
running
4,
and Ana, period.
5,
They
6, like 5-ish seconds. There's plenty of people in the back that you can be popping shots into. Ryan Shield doesn't matter. Just get that damage out. You're spending way too much time lining them up, and you're not dishing out enough damage right now. Whether you're dishing out to the right people or not isn't your main priority right now. It's just clicking M1 more
We'll always have
frequently.
heals in us with that comp.
Also, as a side note, the more you click M1, the more you're going to train yourself to aim better. Because if you're just focusing on aiming so hard that you put all of your effort into one shot and you miss that shot, you get no positive feedback and you're going to grow really slowly. But if you end up spending a lot of time shooting and a lot of time aiming, every time you hit a shot, you're getting positive reinforcement. So your brain's like, oh, sick. That's what I have to do to hit that shot. That's how many inches on my mouse pad I have to move this many pixels, right? You're reinforcing that muscle memory by just like hypothetically aiming and hypothetically shooting. You're like, I'm sort of tracking them, but the moment of the shot is where it all matters, and that's not what you want. You'd rather have feedback as much and as frequently, as reliably as possible. Yeah, that Brig pretty much did save your life.
And I died
Never
there.
mind. So this little bit, right? All of this comes down to timing, right? So we'll go all the way back here.
Trouble engaging on them.
So your team is sort of like
Shouldn't have
all
more
over the
healing
place.
than us.
Way right here. I paused it at a bad time. We'll wait for you on scope. Okay, so you've got Hanzo, who's heading back to the fight. Looks like they're sort of engaged, sort of not. But the point is that the enemy isn't engaged, and you're presenting yourself off on this off angle for them to devote all of their resources to. So you can say like, oh, you're distracting them. Doesn't matter. What's basically happening is you're dying to them, which you absolutely don't want to do. So you need to wait for your team to start an engagement or the enemy team to start an engagement or something to the point where there's stuff going on to where you can shoot in freely and uncontested. If you basically need to make sure this Genji needs to be trying to kill somebody else over here, not you. So you can figure that out. People are like, oh, how do I know whether I'm going in or not? If you can see like 3 separate people that are like, everybody's looking at you now. If everybody's looking at you, you're not doing something right. Typically it's the timing. Now your team's going to go in, it looks like, but it's already too late because people have started to commit resources to you. And like Genji committing, he overcommitted to you, honestly. Genji and Brigitte overcommitted, but it's going to slow down your team considerably because you don't punish them for their overcommit. You can totally do that by shooting into this huddled mass of hitbox, and you're getting some value. You're distracting them, you're dealing damage, you're allowing your team to push in without their main tank. That's fine. That's good. But what's not good is sitting here lining up shots and then getting pressured back.
Okay.
Like at this point, I would like, Brigitte has hit you, you're 74 HP, Genji's going to right-click dash combo you instantly. I would get the hell out of there. I'd go for any mini you can possibly get to. I would have gone for the other one just because it's closer and more reliable, but, you know.
I got shattered, but
Or I could have jumped off the map to not give him more ult charge.
I mean, yeah, but it's one of those things where you could have jumped off the map, but you weren't committed to dead yet. Like, if we watch this back,
Okay.
right here, you could just decide to fall off the map, but I don't see you as dead because you can grapple right here and get to this mini super easily. And then if they still overcommit to you, if Genji's still overcommitting, that's okay because now you're getting super value because he's so far away from his team. You're going to respawn and you're not going to be much further away anyway. But what happens is you like look back at the Brigitte, you dilly-dally right in here, you get stuck on this wall, and then you go over this way. And all of this time, you spent like, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds, right? That whole time, Genji's progressing straight to you, and you're not progressing away from him. So yeah, you could drop off and prevent him from getting 74 ult charge, but it's not the biggest deal, especially when you could have lived in the first place. Like, you have grapple and you're being chased, you should use it when they're not directly on your ass like that.
I got shattered, but I'm not in line of sight.
Also, I like that you're pressing tab when you're dead. That's pretty important, because then you can figure out like how the fight's going. Reading the kill feed is one thing, but seeing how far somebody is along in their respawn is important. Seeing who's alive on the enemy team at any given moment is important. Seeing ult charge, important. So good on you for that. I've had students who never press tab, and it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, tab's like my favorite button in this game.
That's good. I had to unbind it to like up arrow because I did it way too often and it ruined like streams and recordings, but you know, it's a good habit to be in than like never touching it. So right here, you died on an off angle and it seems like you're going right back to your default, which is being with the team. Try and make your default the off angle instead. And if you're getting too hardcore punished over there, then you can play more with your team or more of like here instead of all the way committing.
Go in, move forward. Hold W like your life depends on it.
And then the guy's complaining more.
Yeah. There you go. There's an example of watch what you do with your crosshair. You're leading a bit, and that's fine. Like, you're moving a tiny bit, but she's moving a lot more. So you're setting yourself up there. Basically, have you ever like seen how people shoot skeets? Like when they're using shotguns, like shoot clay pigeons or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're like, the thing will go flying, clay pigeon will go flying, and they'll like snap to it and lead it a bit, and then they'll be leading a tiny bit, but the thing's going way faster, and then they'll just go boop. That's exactly what you did, and that's exactly what you should do with somebody walking in a straight line. This is probably like Nessie, the first one. So, my personal struggle is hitting people who are both holding still and moving in a straight line. I cannot do that, and it's because I've put so much time and effort into doing the like micro flicking and double flicking thing, which is great when somebody's strafing, but when somebody decides to not strafe, that's gonna be more effective against me. Just because like that's my aiming style is more all over the place. But if you figure it out, that's solid because it applies for 80 strafing, it applies for straight lines, and if you're taking an off angle like you should be, people won't be 80 strafing you. They'll be like if you take like a top down angle, right? Somebody's over here, your teammate, you're over here. Somebody's 80 strafing your teammate, that's on a straight line for you. So you just line it up and boom, you're good. Easy peasy.
Yes. Go to.
What I don't recommend is standing in the middle of this open area here. Pick either side. If you're going for the left side, that's
point.
awesome.
Can we drop the point?
But
Is that a
it seems like you're delaying here. I wouldn't do that because you've got your two corners. You've got this bit and the bit below you, but you can't really go very far with this corner. It's not really like, it's not like a wall. It's a column that can protect you a little bit, but there's still some easy peeking that can happen for you.
shot to the deflecting Genji?
I'm doing something. Sorry.
I'm being
Let's
bullied
see.
into a corner by break. Helps.
There you go.
And then there I warned my team about the McCree, but nobody really listened to me.
Did you?
And
Bullied
then
into a corner by break. Helps.
It doesn't pick up your mic. I don't know what you said, but
I said McCree has ult, or McCree's behind.
well, at least you warned. That's good. One thing here, I'll point out as I don't only point out negatives. I do point out positives. So
Being bullied into
right here, you're strafing this McCree. Your strafing could use some work, but the fact that you're doing it at all is good. Right here, you stop strafing, pretty much. Like, right here, stop strafing. That's totally fine. People are like, oh, don't stand still. Aside from the fact that I couldn't hate you, the fact of the matter is, if you're strafing left and right, and nobody's shooting at you, all it's doing is disrupting your aim, and there's no point. Like, if there's an enemy Widow or McCree or Hanzo, yes, you should be strafing, even if you can't see them. But in this case, you know that your threats, i.e. Anna and McCree, unless they've got a Widow now, Anna and McCree are dead. Those are your two biggest threats, and so, you know, you're totally uncontested. You can do whatever you want, standing still included. However, I do think you should stand a little closer to your corner here, just because if you do need to move, with your reaction time and their bullet speed, assuming your two threats, Anna and McCree, come back, you're going to be kind of SOL, especially if McCree comes out over here, because he can just one dink you if he gets a headshot off. So, kind of in scary zone, kind of not in scary zone, but always be close to cover, even if you feel like you're uncontested.
Well,
Is
my issue was the McCree didn't die, and then he got me.
Well, you'd pressured him down, which is the point. If you were still in this area over here, you would have been safer. You go into the more open and more aggressive position, which doesn't net you any benefit, really. It doesn't let you see anything more. Right here, you can see everything you need to do. If you go to the right side, all you're doing is giving yourself a further view through that spawn door, which means that if you go all the way in front of it, right, spawn door is here. If you're right in front of it, they've got their little invincible zone right here, and they can just peek in and out of that zone to clap you. But if you're all the way over here, they need to come out of that zone and everything, and they're like, you know, out of the no walk zone and then out of the invincible zone, duh. They need to commit to being out there. You, like, if they peek out here, see you, they can prepare, switch to Widow even if they want, get a headshot, switch back to whoever they were on if they didn't have ult charge, and then just proceed forward. So whether McCree's dead or not, the fact of the matter is he's pressured away. I guess he's just chilling down here or something. But if you're closer to your corner, where McCree's at, or whether he's dead or not, becomes less important. So like right here, you get shot. Remember how I said he'd just dink you down immediately? That is exactly what happens.
Is there in here? Break down.
So if you were closer to this corner, you'd A, take less damage from the dink, B, be harder to dink, and C, have time to go back behind cover and then get the health pack back here, or peek back to it like Moira ball or whatever suits your fancy, right?
There.
Yeah, I also feel like it was mostly my fault for playing that position, and then my team didn't really listen to me when I said McCree was behind.
Whether or not your team listened to McCree behind does not matter in this case at all. If they were all focusing him, he still would have killed you. Because he had you up on an open platform, totally easy sightlines. You're moving in a predictable way towards your one cover because you're too far away from it to use it immediately. So he had your number regardless of how good your team was. If your team was all GM Smurfs and they were all in like a 5 stack and they're all communicating and they heard your call out, you'd still probably die to that McCree because he got your dink off. He had your number. You're done. Like everything there was preventable on your end. Maybe preventable on your team's end, like if they pressured him and kept him in that health pack room for 6 years. You don't ever want to rely on that. As a player who solos or duos or 3 stacks or whatever, your goal is to improve yourself as a singular player and as a Widowmaker, not improve how you work with a specific team with like this dude and like his random duo, right? Because you're not always going to get this dude and his random duo. You're going to always get yourself though. So sometimes your team is the reason you lose or win, but most of the time you can sway it in your favor. There's occasionally a few games that are completely unwinnable, but there's also completely unlosable ones. But I don't know. It's probably like 90 to 95% of games are
Hammond.
completely swingable either way.
Good round, everybody.
I learned yesterday that I've got a bunch of keybinds, right? Like there's WASD. S is pause, A is back 5 seconds, D is forward 5 seconds, but I learned that W is forward 20. I have a button for forward 20. It's like down here, but having it to W is so nice because it lets me skip that early bit a lot. It's right here.
And then
What are you gonna say?
I heard the Widow using her SMG in the spawn.
Hey, there you go. So you now know that they have a Widow. Check. Good. I'm interested to see how you play that out. I also have a Moira too, nice. Okay, sweet. So the thing that I like there is you're in a spot, you didn't shoot at anybody else until you got your free secured kill. That's the way it should be. You remember how there's like the Genji and the Ana back on point 2? This is exactly what you should have done there. You should have not shot at anybody else, i.e. the Genji, until you got the Ana, and then you can move on to the Genji. Get the free easy kill first, and then go for the other less guaranteed kills. This drop, you probably could have stayed up on your high ground a bit longer, because you could, I don't know. Against the Mei, it's a bit iffy, but, oh, did you make it out? Sort of.
Almost.
Oh, yeah, there's the latency there. So in this case, you hear Genji dash to you. This is a reflex thing, just like turning around and knowing where he's at and then starting to shoot him. The time to you seeing him and shooting, now, to now, that's a noticeable time delay. It should be like, now, or like, now, rather than like, now, you know? It's a weird explanation, but the aim training will help with that. I think there's like, I don't actually know if there's reflex training things out there outside of just aiming, but there probably is. I just, slap that into Google and see what comes out. Because if you feel like reflexes are personally like hindering you a ton, whether I say it is or not, if you feel like it is, it doesn't hurt to put time into it as long as you're making progress. Like if you're wasting time doing it, don't. But if you can improve your reflexes, go for it. And if you find something that actually helps, let me know, because I wouldn't turn it down either. See if it'll help. No reason not to try.
You sleep. Reloading.
So again, here's the low ground. Here's the behind the team thing. You'd rather be up on any sort of high ground, literally wherever, as long as you're not staring them directly in the face.
Yeah, I was wondering where their Widow was, and then
You're playing safe compared to their Widow. This is a good spot, I'll admit, for Widow protection. She's here. You can't see her as well. She's on this bridge catwalk area. You're safe. She basically has to grapple up to here or to that little area to get to you, or peek here. But, you're the defensive Widow, so you get the advantage of repositioning every time you kill her or see her. So I would use that to your advantage. I heard you take a breath. Were you going to say something?
So I think it was the Ana, but they said they didn't know the exact position or the name of where the Widow was at, which kind of, like, I didn't know what they meant.
Huh.
So I didn't know where the Widow was.
Reloading.
Oh, so she's up there. Okay. So in this case, it works out for you because you can peek her. But notice how I think she shoots first.
Reloading.
Yeah, so she gets first shot. If she hit that, she would have won. First shot for Widow v Widow duels is huge. Most of it goes down to positioning. The rest of it goes down to timing and aim. If you're in a spot where the Widow has to come to you, that's awesome. Right now, you're playing safe with this corner. That's awesome. It lets you block out this area. But the problem is that you're having to peek it consistently. What you want to do is be in the spot where you're watching both it and over here, which you're sort of doing. If I go back, you'll see you like peek it to look every now and then, but it's only seeing it in like, the top 1/8 of your screen or the top 1/6 of your screen. And I know from experience and from other VODs is that most Widow students barely ever look past this red circle. So you should get in the habit of pointing your crosshair where you want to look. Because if you're flicking from you know, right here to right up here, over and over and over and over, it'll build a tiny bit of muscle memory. It'll make you faster, but it'll also mean that you've just accomplished the big flick of the like dual flick combo thing. So if you're in this general area, you can then do another little combo to her or just straight to her, whatever floats your boat. So
That's cool.
you're watching up there, but you're really not. So get in that habit. It'll help you a ton, and it'll give you that first shot advantage all the time. You ended up winning, but you totally could have lost that. See, there you go. That's exactly what I was talking about. I'm glad I said that before you started doing that. Oh, also for your Venom Mine, a lot of Widows don't use it very often. I just throw that bad boy out on cooldown if it gets used up, but put it in a spot where you want to know where somebody is, but also where it's not branching. So if you put it right in this middle, for example, you can hit their Reinhardt, but you A, already know he's in this general area, but B, he could go over here, over here, over here, over here. Doesn't matter, right? But if you put a Venom Mine like right here and Widow trips it, just by the fact that it's tripped, you can be like, oh, snap, there's a Widow right there. And you can immediately flick your big flick over there and then do your little micro flick to her. And there's no like questioning of where she's going to go. If there is any questioning, it's is she going to drop or go this way? Either way, she's predictable. And either way, you get value out of the alert rather than the wall sights or like the infra sight thing, the wall hacks. It's nice, but typically you want to use it for the alert of like, oh, there's somebody there. Or if it's behind you, it's, well, somebody's there, and then where are they? You don't want it to be like, oh, I got the Ryan, he's right there, duh. So right there, notice how you don't really have a place to go from that high ground? You sort of do. You could have just backed up to use this to break line of sight, which is what you should have done. Use this to break line of sight, and then back up while you can. Because notice how you drop, and now you're performing this part of your like little motion. You're doing this bit completely open, and then this bit you also don't have any cover. So use the high ground to take this little part of the motion, and that way you've used this like ledge of it to block line of sight to everybody at choke, and then you can drop down and you're only exposed for that little tiny bit.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the health back as fast as possible during that.
Fast as possible would still be this way and then down. It's technically a little bit slower because this way you're taking as the crow flies, but if you got shot twice here, it would have been worth it to spend, you know, a quarter of a second walking backwards in cover than it would be to do it in the open.
Can't see.
True.
Leap stick one.
So again, right here, totally out in the open. You have no cover. You're on the ground floor. You're having to face tank Orion shield. Enemy Widow takes that little high ground she just took last time. You don't have anywhere to go, really. If you do have somewhere to go, it's in a position that she wants you in rather than one you want to be in. So take the power move. There you go.
That was for Brian. Oops. Doesn't matter.
There you go. Nice clean double dink. In this case, though,
That was for.
she's still looking down. You can tell conveniently because of her shot downwards, but you can tell because of the way her head's angled. So she's looking down. And so your first shot, you do have a little bit more time to line it up. I know I'm sort of contradicting myself of saying, oh, shoot all the time, but also take some time. I know it's weird, but I'm saying take some time because first shot in a Widow duel is huge. If you dink her once, like with a full charge dink instead of a little half dink, then you don't need to worry about landing any others.
Yeah, I just thought, sorry. I just thought that she already saw me during that.
I mean, she could have, but you know, maybe you need to be in more Widow duels. Maybe you need to get more or pay more attention, I guess, to how hitboxes work. But how heroes position themselves is huge because it gives you an idea of where they're looking. It's helpful for like you know, if you're looking at somebody dead on, you can tell that they're looking at you. If somebody's looking straight to their right and it's like up an angle is perpendicular, you can tell because you know you see their gun pointing that way. But that also applies for weird angles like down or up or, you know, to which side of you. All of that's super important because it can let you know whether this Widow's looking straight at you or straight at the Pharah who's up there or straight at, you know, Genji's over there. Micro plays are huge in Widow duels because it comes down to it's not who's the better aimer. Oh god, what was that? I appreciate. Chill out. Thanks for the follow, dude. Gave me a heart attack. But Widows in Widow 1v1s always think that it's about who can click the head better. No, it's who can click the head smarter, which it does include better and it does include faster, but your job is to stack every single possible like aspect of the fight into your favor, using the 2-corner rule, using peak timings, everything like that, lining up the shot. You spend time before the fight setting it up in your favor, then you spend less time in the fight trying to set it up in your favor. This Widow has to aim up at you and then find your head. You're conveniently already at head level and you know where she's at, so you have a huge advantage. Spending like 0.025 of a second to line that bad boy up a little bit more and dink her is totally worth it.
Run.
It was a really long tangent for something that didn't need to be long, but it's pretty important. It's like with Tracer 1v1s, I could do the same.
The one time I get a nano in the past 4 games, and it's not even meant for me. Fucking what
Oh
do
my
I have
God.
to
I
do?
was trying to save a Reinhardt, but it all works out. Excuse me?
Yeah,
I could just get one nano
they're
in the
just
next
really good at
8 years, or
complaining.
anyone,
Oh, God.
forbid,
I hated them
5
like
Bitcoin.
before the VOD even started, but I hate them even more now.
Widow, top,
Like-
far
Only
left.
5, yeah.
Oh.
I have to buy other.
Another thing for your grapple, you want to use it offensively to get to a new spot whenever it's safe, but you typically want to use it defensively if you can. And the way to use that is, say they have a Winston, right? He's chilling here, you're chilling up here. He jumps up onto you. You don't want to grapple down to here or whatever. I see a lot of Widows do that. You want to put distance between you and them, obviously, but the way you do it is important. He trades his jump. Oh, I need a drawing tablet. He trades his jump for your grapple, right? I'll just put G. And so neither of you have movement abilities, but he gets his back like 100 times faster than you, basically. And so he can just jump again if you blow your grapple. So use your grapple effectively like this. We'll draw another scene, right? High ground, where you're at. We'll say there's like this ravine, right? Winston's here. You're here. He jumps you. What I suggest you do is drop down, get him to follow you, and then grapple back up over here so that he then has to commit his jump again to get to you. And then you can drop again. And then at that point, you're wasting his time. You're surviving for as long as you can. You're opening up, healing. You're repositioning whenever you want. The point is basically, he doesn't jump to you, and then you grapple straight down, and then he just falls back down onto you. It's a cluttered drawing, but
Good shit.
Catalyst, you need to like
I don't need to buy anything, I
post
already
in the
have it.
server again the like screenshot of me trying to do the
this
mercy
health pack eating.
explanation
he's
thing.
solo blading me, nah, champ.
Another thing for the team chat, if you've just got one dude like this and like his duo isn't anywhere near as bad, just mute that one dude, because like I can see why he's distracting you, because he's distracting me. I talk a lot and I can't even hear myself think when he's just like shouting. So totally worth it to mute him unless you think he's funny and it's like entertaining or something.
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining, but yeah, that was pretty annoying what he just did.
Yeah, it's like it's entertaining, but at the end of the day, your job is to win. And the sick transition, the way to win, when you're dead, call out stuff like this. If you see people like that, let them know. Like, call out wherever that like window is, like center mid, whatever you want to call it. If you see her over here, call that out. You're dead. You get a third person camera. It's like you're still here. She doesn't care, but you can still tell your team where she's at. Super important. Is he also playing music too? Is he playing like squealy guitar music?
I think that was his teammate, the duo.
Like, it just sounds like there's somebody doing a twangy guitar, like what the hell?
No, shit.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I think that was Ryan.
Unlucky. I'm swapping Winston for main tank on second because they're running a lot of Winstonable stuff.
What? Okay. Whatever you say, bud. Alright. I don't know how I feel about that Brig swap, but what is your guys' comp? What in the hell is this? Okay. So in this case, your team is both extremely mobile, kinda, and then not at all, and then kinda. So, yeah. God, this is such a weird comp. Your goal is to basically figure out.
I'm just confused at what they were doing. The enemy team.
I don't know, man. Enemy team comp, it's working, I guess. They've got pressure you, pressure you, pressure you, keep Ryan alive, May. So, in this case, this is one of those weird games where it's not really clear what to do. So, the way you boil it down is who's important on their team, not as important. You first start with who's important on your team, And in this case, it's your main healer who can't support herself in the same way that Brig can. If Brig gets jumped on, she can keep herself alive. If Anna gets jumped on, she's pretty much out of luck. So Widow isn't a very peely hero. Like, she's not diva, but if you see somebody going for your Anna, they're immediately like your number one target, unless it's somebody like a Ryan and there's like a free Moira in the back. But typically, if there's a squishy going for your high priority support, typically, go for them first. If there's somebody who could, in theory, do it, same thing for them. And then you go for the typical pick off Moira, pick off the squishies you can, and then Reinhardt. Reinhardt should be the last person you're shooting at, basically. It's like, sometimes you'll get weird comps like that. Oh, they just, what did they switch for? What was that? May
went
to
to
Symmetra.
I thought they were gonna flank from the side with her, but they just kind of kept her.
Yeah. It's like the fact that you're moving
Yeah.
over here.
And then here we have my death sentence.
Yeah, I mean, that spot that you went to is a lot of people go there. But wait, what? Could May be the pressure on Widow because no damage fall off? I mean, yeah, but the Widow is a lot more pressure than May. Like, at the distances you're engaging with a May on point 2, like, you can pretty much just strafe away her things. I mean, yeah, if I'm playing Widow and there's a May, I'll be pressured a bit, but nowhere near as much as the Widow. I don't really know. I mean, they swapped the Sims. They obviously didn't think it was going to work, but where you just went is cool, I guess. You can see over here, you can see over here, you can see over here, but the problem with seeing everywhere is that you don't have anywhere to avoid being seen, if that makes sense. Like, she's got line of sight to you, you've got line of sight to her, but everybody else does too. So getting a peek down over here is cool, and if you thought they were going to go around to your right side with Sim, then your better spot rather than here would be over with your team, surprisingly, or over here. If you go over here, it would have really clapped you for their push from over here. But, you know, if you waltzed over there instead of grappled, then, you know, from right here, walk over, drop down, walk over. Save your grapple for when you actually, like, if you predict wrong, basically. So you could have lived if you were, you know, in any different position, but I don't really know what their strategy is, so you can't really predict them. Good job of switching between cams, by the way. Get as much situational awareness as you possibly can.
Back off, back off, back off.
They have a sim? Since when? What the hell?
Notice where you're playing. You're playing this pillar. You should be playing here, or ideally over here. That way you have a wall to work with. This way you're just kind of going back and forth behind a pillar, and if she catches you in the middle, you're pretty much boned. But over here you can peek with just like a little pixel, and then you're considerably safe. Right here you're exposing all of yourself. You'd rather expose half of your head than all of your head.
And healing.
And the biggest problem you're having right now is look at your crosshair placement. Crosshair placement is huge. It's, like I said earlier, of doing the work before the actual fight. So watch.
Back off, back off.
This is good. Your crosshair placement is at her head level, but you mistime it.
Back off.
That's fine. This bit right here, your crosshair is too low. It's like her upper like shoulders or like her upper breasts or pecs.
They have a
So
sim? Since
again with the early shot, she's not peeking you when you think she's peeking you. She's done it twice now. She can tell when you've lined up a shot roughly. She knows the timing, and you're popping the gun too early.
when?
So also the little like shake here doesn't make
Back
you
off,
harder to
back
hit.
off, back off.
Wait
They
for
have
it.
a sim? Since when?
It's not like a mercy where it makes you harder to hit when she's rezzing. You're not spinning enough for that. What you want to do for a Widow 1v1 is if you really want to be this technical and try and do it, the way you avoid being hit like this is just pulling a 180, because the back of your head is considerably harder to hit than the front of your head. And you look down when you do it, so you look down and behind you. It's really disorienting. I don't suggest you do it at all. But if you're confident in pretty much everything else and you're losing Widow duels consistently and your positioning's perfect and nothing else can be done, do that. It works best for grapple shots. Like if you're going for grapple, shoot and then immediately turn around, just because like, you know, you fire once and you're done.
So I just shouldn't do anything stupid. And then I accidentally meleeed there because the button's on the side of my mouse.
Whatever. It canceled your scope. You got your shot off. You can count it. But like,
Back off,
look where your crosshair placement is. It's about right.
Back off.
But you fire when she's back behind cover. Like it's like you're pre-firing. It's like your projectile is showing here. You don't need to pre-fire somebody like that. You can, but odds are you're not going to end up actually landing it. So get to a spot right here or right here where you want to be, and then wait for their shot, charge up yours, and then peek and then go for a little tap with crosshair placement so you don't have to do any aiming whatsoever, because she's not going to show up over here or over here. You know that. So line up your crosshair, do a little peek, rather than, because you're having to do the defensive shot here because you're worried she's going to kill you from your worst position. There's no point to do that when you can just be in the better position.
Okay, healing. Okay.
That was a scary peek on that McCree,
Alright,
whether he
you
was
guys
ulting or not.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly where he was, so I just like roughly guessed.
It's good enough. At this point, though, you are walking forward, which is away from your cover. Sorry for the cough. It's away from your cover, not at all where you want to be. You don't gain anything by walking forward. If anything, you'd want to walk to the side, which lets you peek this further and get a free peek off on her. This is an offensive peek if you walk to your right. But walking forward just makes it so that if she gets line of sight to you, you're in a much worse spot. She's already in a pretty bad spot because she's out in the open. Like, look where you're at. This is your wall of cover, and you're considerably in front of it. So you're gonna be fighting with your cover, and it's not what you want. You want your cover to work for you, not against you. Again, right here, totally in the open. You're on the forward part of this rather than the back part, which means that you can't use this part of your cover. You should be in the middle if you're here at all, because then you can crouch and walk backwards, and you're safe from down here, or more safe, I should say, not totally safe. There's a perfect example of jumping like that. If you're in a Widow 1v1 and the other Widow has your number like you have hers, don't do that jumping thing. The only time you want to do it is if you're sort of getting the drop on her. It's more of a hide tier thing because Widows are more reactive there. It's like, okay, if you're trying to react to the Widow jumping out, it's harder than her just peeking out. But in general, you'd rather just do the little peek. Because even if she lived, notice she's now in the middle. She doesn't have access to her cover. And then you can just kill her again with a little finishing shot.
And then I got lucky that my Doomfist dived her.
Yeah, you got some support there. Totally cool. Her timing was bad. Like, your team's pretty mobile now. I don't even know when he swapped to Doomfist. Switched to Orisa. Was like, what are these dudes doing? What is...
Yeah, they have double main tank, which I just didn't question.
Whatever, man. Like, it works, I guess. Their team comp's equally weird. So, their team comp's equally worse. So, you guys have the comp advantage here for sure. So long as you don't spend your time bashing their, Rhine shield. This spot, again, totally on the open. You don't get to use this cover. You get to see down here a little bit, but whatever. If somebody peeks you here, Widow can just peek you from down here. You'd rather be over yonder and look down this sight line. Not very important. Think of it this way. If you're a Widow on the attacking side, and you're looking through this choke, there's a few spots you'll check, right? You'll check up there, you'll check over here, and you'll check back where you're standing right now. Those are 3 very easy checks, and there's plenty of little rocks and lamps and whatever, right? And walls to hide behind if you're on the offense. So all you're doing is exposing yourself to all of her cover, when if you go over yonder, all you're doing is looking straight down that point in which you can get an off-angle shot for free behind a main tank shield or whatever. So right there, you had to jump forward for your shot. If you were just waiting, like right here, she peeks up in that little window, you just bop her as she's grappling or as she's landing, boom, you're done. If she lands a body shot, you pop back. Again, your peek, watch. She has your number, she gets first shot off, or you get first shot, but she has now shot. Her cadence is going to be before you because you're having to peek. She's already got it lined up, right? Your crosshair placement is low, she knows exactly where you're at. She's going to win that because she was set up better in the beginning.
Whoa, I know.
Running
Trust me.
Orisa?
And then I could have also told my team she was there.
Yeah, I mean, they should be able to hear the pew and see the huge, red outline everywhere. But if they can't see that, then
I know.
whatever. The more callouts you make, the better. If you're going to be in voice, you might as well. So right there, again, notice how
I
she's
know.
strafing.
Orisa? Okay.
They're on point, by the way.
Right here, you're a little off to the side. Again, you're always to the left or the right of somebody's head. You're rarely ever straight on it when you're doing a strafe peek like this. But she sees you. She knows she has Widow. She's going to immediately unscope and use this cover against you. She has the 2-corner rule right now. You don't. You've got, I guess you've got this right here, but whatever. So you see if she unscopes and moves a lot faster and immediately out of your sight. She loses there because she's dumb enough to stay in the same spot against the Widow who has Widow vision, but whatever. That was unfortunate. There was the...
Hey.
See, at least you spent time shooting there. If one of those shots landed, it would have been a lot better than spending all of these shots just lining up for the last one.
We stick their mine, okay?
Not really sure where we're running in Orisa. Do you mind going Diva? Or back to Zarya, even?
And I just don't know why I kept going up in that one spot and I didn't go across the other way.
You mean like over that way?
Yeah.
This spot's not terrible. I don't really know why you're doing it either. The thing you want to try and do is vary up your positioning as much as possible. Even if you spend 3 times over here and 1 time over there, that's enough to make them think. If you spend 600 times over here, they're just going to be like, okay, this is Widow's spot. Like, this is where she always is, always for sure. You don't ever want to make them have that confidence. You basically want them to be like, okay, where's this Widow? They never should know for sure. They can have some educated guesses, but unless they see you, they shouldn't know for sure.
Widow on the right, Widow on the right.
And then here we have, I messed up so bad and I don't know why I did this.
I don't know what you're going to get into, but what was bad about that Venom mine? I'll see if you can answer it.
I used it as damage and not as a, hey, look, this person's gonna flank me.
That is true. That is good. You remember what I said earlier. On top of that, it's easily destroyable. But the biggest part, not that you use it for damage, using it for damage is fine. The biggest part is they now know you're up here. They see, like, if this is their perspective, right? They see a Venom and go right from there. There's only one spot you can be in. Even if they're not good at tracking where this arc actually leads to, they can know that you're in this general area, and there's only one spot where you can actually be. So you've now given your position away. You might as well have just shot the floor, but it wouldn't even last as long as the Venom mine does. I guess it works for this Genji. I guess the health. He was so low.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't kill him.
I know. I thought he was going to die too. God, he must have been at 1 or 2. He was so low. See, that Widow, she is now shot. You now know where she's at. What you did with your Venom mine is essentially this, but with less of an audio cue.
Widow right on the bottom. They're all on the right.
And then here we have, what was I doing?
You remember the thing with the thing and the Winston and the what you just did was this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just jump that. If you want to be here, which you don't, but if you do, you can just drop and then grapple back up to safety when you inevitably get pressured super hard. It's only a sim and a Moira, which is surprising.
Honestly, I have no idea what I was thinking, because I did something even stupider, which you'll see in a minute.
I'm ready for it.
You're healed.
I did that, and I did that.
Ooh.
You're healed.
Okay.
Alright, I
So,
got 2.
He could have easily right-clicked me if Orisa wasn't there.
even if she is there, he still could have right-clicked you. Like, he could have stunned you so
Yeah.
hard. Like, wait for it.
Alright, I got 2.
Stun. Like, he just starts off with the right click. Or is that a left click? That's a left click. Okay. He was going for the dink, and he went for your Orisa. That was his fault. You should have died 100 times over. Like, again, think of the spot you want to be in. Is that a spot you want to be in?
Make that 3.
Do you want to be this close to whoever jumps around this high ground area? Like, if somebody comes up here, is this where you want to be? No. Do you want to be inside this doorway? No. Would you rather be outside of it on either side? It's preferable. It's not necessarily the perfect thing, but it's where you'd rather be.
Technically, that's 4.
Yeah, this is out
Yeah,
in the open.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I have no idea what was going through my head.
It seems like you're autopiloting. It's like, this is your spot. You'll leave it occasionally, and you'll always come back. The way you reduce autopilot is by just, reducing autopilot. Like, go to different spots, take different angles. They're changing up their team comp, and you guys are too, which should be helping with your autopilot because you should be adjusting to play with your comp. But if you're not good at that, then just focus on being in a different spot, playing according to where the Widow plays. This Widow is not always coming from the same area every single time, and that should be forcing you to change up your spot because she's getting the advantage on you now.
Yeah, that poor raging lesbian. You.
This is a perfect example of, okay, great. You know they have a Roadhog that is in the general vicinity of there. Awesome. But you'd rather know if somebody's coming up behind you or in front of you to your right, or, even if you put it like right here, that's okay. Because if somebody comes up in this window, they get hit by that and they'll potentially die like the Genji should have that one time.
Or I could have put it behind me where that Widow was before.
Yeah. I think I said behind first, but yeah. So at this point, there's not a whole lot you can do here. What you can do is watch the McCree who just showed up on high ground to your right. checking down here is fine, but you should have seen that McCree. Wait for him.
Yeah, he came back up.
We just walked up. Like, oh, that's bad frame. There we go. Shoot him. He's high ground. He's probably got high noon. That wall forces your team either way back into his high noon. Is that a Genji? Am I stupid? That looks like a McCree.
That's a McCree.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. I can't tell for sure. I saw glowy bits and it made me question it. But anyway, you've got your McCree chilling up here. Your team gets this huge wall in front of them. They're forced either into the enemy team through the wall or back, which is probably what they're going to end up doing. And then McCree's going to get potentially a fat high noon. Or he's just going to high noon you and you're going to feel real bad. Or he's just going to not do any of that.
I only turned around because he shot me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess he didn't have high noon, or like he didn't want to use it. I really don't know what this McCree's doing, but
Or maybe he was charging it? I don't know.
I don't know, man. He overcommitted to that. If he didn't have high noon, he should have just gone for it.
It's kind of a
Okay, Widow Vision is up. This position, at this point, you're so predictable up here. You don't really need to worry about it because they know you're here anyway. You just need to worry about make sure they don't know exactly where, or make sure that, well, you know, they do know exactly where because of Widow Vision, but make sure that exactly where has plenty of cover so that you can avoid whatever Widow shenanigans are going to happen because she has pretty much every advantage on you. Their team's pushing in really slowly. Like, it seems like if you get one pick, they just stop pushing. So the fact that I haven't seen like a full hardcore like push from them just means you need to focus hard on getting that one pick or the 2 picks or whatever, and that'll stop them for like another 45 seconds or whatever. Like that. Like, they're probably not even going to push because they're just going to wait. Or if they do push, they've got a man down.
They did push?
I would have taken shots there. Yeah, the enemy Widow's there, but getting the potential pick on the McCree is bigger than revealing your spot to the Widow because, you know, it seems like she doesn't care anyway. Right here, you've made your sightlines narrower. You've given her more cover. So notice how right here, the ratio of slot to wall is considerably higher than it is right here. Like, your crosshair is barely bigger than, or barely thinner than this. Like, I can block it out with just this one little thin line. And, you know, for the enemy Widow, all she needs is this little sliver because her FOV is going to open up a ton like that. And you've got this huge area and you're trying to basically thread a needle through a haystack. If anything, you should be strafing to the right to open it up more and reduce the amount of cover that she has.
I feel like there I wanted to get like guaranteed lined up on her for a shot, but I shouldn't have done that. I should have just like shot.
From right here, it's just as guaranteed lined up unless she goes this way. So you're just giving yourself a larger window of opportunity because like, we'll go back a bit. We'll try and time this right. Right here, sure, you can time that right, but it's such a small window. Like, her hitbox will be both here and behind these pillars at the same time. And if you're getting to the point where the cover she's peeking through is smaller than her hitbox, like, she's got the massive advantage on you. Plus, your crosshair isn't really leading by much, so you're trying to reflex shot this with your flick. So you're basically trying to flick into this tiny little area here and then time it properly, and it's like super difficult. So just like, if you're going to go for this line of sight, commit to this slot or this slot so that you have more time to line it up so you can see how predictable she is. So like right there, boom, she just jumped and all of that was negated. Sort of what happened if you were still over here, but it would have been a lot more like you hit the wall anyway. Like, you know.
I'm dead. Oh, I got confused because before me and her were doing the same thing and I died. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it confuses me because it's like the same scenario, just different timing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. The biggest deal here is you've got pretty much every card stacked against you. She just misses. It's not that you won that fight, it's that you didn't lose that fight. So it's important to understand when you should have been beaten, but you weren't. Because you can say, like, oh, there was a 900 IQ play because you moved over to the left, or it's like, it just happened to work out for you. There's plenty of other ways to make that work more reliably and more consistently. Yeah, I don't think the McCree knows what he's doing. You're totally right, Wonder. He has absolutely no idea. But it's fine. You can capitalize on that. That said, as soon as you see the McCree, going for him, totally cool. I'm going to watch your strafing, though. Okay, so you do still strafe a bit while the McCree's doing his thing.
Okay, that's 2.
Nice TP. This is a good visual example of what happens when you grapple down. It's effectively the same thing. Watch how she's just like stuck as she waits for her escape instead of just dropping down. It's like, okay, dude, you totally could have done that a better way.
Mars low. Mars one. Hog no hill.
Okay, so another thing is listen to like Winston calling out sniper. You might not know exactly where she is. You might not see this red beam immediately, but if a hero calls it out, that means that they have line of sight to her, which means that she must be basically within line of sight of the point, within reason, because you can see your Winston bubble here. So that rules out like down here or like way out here probably. So you can guess here or over here. So unscope and look immediately like you're doing to figure out where she's at, and then you can work on the Widow duel. Again, your cadence is off here. You could totally win this, but it's like you shoot too early when you expect her to strafe in. You flick, but not to where she's actually at. If you flick, it should be on to her. You shouldn't be flicking to a spot that you predict. And then you do the same sort of thing. She stutters here for a bit, but you're too late on the shot. You could have popped it earlier. Again, that's part of like just the reflexes of Widow dueling. And then she shoots here, and because you're waiting longer in between shots, she's just firing slightly more than you. So you're missing this last shot that's like a little baby shot. She's getting 3 in, you're only getting 2 in. And she's going to end up winning these just out of sheer statistics more often. She has more bullets leaving her gun in your general direction. Desperately trying to make the teleporter useful. Dude, teleporter can be useful, but like, not always. Not in that circumstance, not at all. That's like Winston jumping downwards. Or like dashing downwards. Why would you do that? Widow grapple is like, people are more okay with it for whatever reason. I don't know why. I hate it. But like, you know, that teleport was hilarious. I like her little like strafe crouch thing too she did to like try and live longer. So this is purely down to aim training. If you aim trained, you would have landed this for sure because it's a really predictable arc. It's like just straight walking here. Your muscle memory was just off. She's walking here, you move to here, or I guess to there. You know, totally fixable. Not any other like huge mistakes there.
Nice game.
Wasn't she? Hang on.
Yeah, she was touching it, I think.
She was like right here, and she like is mid jump or something. Unfortunate, dude.
Nice game.
Oh no, she died.
She died, but it's like I think she still died over point or like on point. She should have touched, but I guess Overwatch didn't like her. It was probably her latency. But now that we've reached Yieldy end, is there anything that you want me to touch on more? If you have any questions or anything, because I talked a lot.
Is there any ways I can fix over aiming, or is it just more practice?
It's more practice. Muscle memory training with like Aim Hero will help a ton with that. Because currently you're over aiming just because you're used to Pharah, or I don't know how long you've played Widow or Hitscan in general, but aim training will get you used to that. It'll build your muscle memory, but it'll also build like just your cognitive thinking of, okay, just it makes it a much clearer thing of move mouse to click head. It seems like a lol XD meme of just saying click heads, but the more you do muscle memory training and aim training or whatever, the more you just think, oh, you literally do just click their heads. You don't overcomplicate it as much because you've narrowed down every possibility. You've gotten rid of bubbles. You've gotten rid of weird cover. You're just focusing on clicking as many things as accurately as you can. So it's basically play more, do aim training. Your overcorrecting will eventually correct itself. Also fire more shots. Was that your only question?
I thought you were gonna continue.
Oh, no.
So what should I focus more on my positioning, or is it not going in the same corner like 7 times?
What do you mean by work on your positioning? Like, rephrase the question if you can.
Like, what do you think my biggest issue with positioning is?
Your biggest issue is probably the 2-corner rule. If you work on the 2-corner rule, then you'll end up being in different and better spots more frequently. If you just focus on being in different spots, you'll end up putting yourself in different but worse spots. So, like, there's a terrible outline there, but might as well. So, if you focus on the 2-corner rule, you'll end up figuring out which spots are good just by the virtue of, oh, I need a 2-corner rule. this spot works. Is it good? Yes or no? Okay. Not, I need to be in a different spot. Is being on this box in the middle of the payload good? It's like, no, it's not. It's different, so it's good, but it's really not. So work on that bad boy, and you should see considerable improvement just by the fact that you'll die a lot less, and you'll feel more confident taking more shots.
And then I feel like I focus so much on trying to kill other widows.
Mhm.
Like I play a lot of widow headshot only, and then I don't really focus on the other hitboxes, so that's why I struggle so much hitting a Moira, as
Okay.
you saw.
Aim training will help with that. Focusing on widows is fine. Like, you can pressure her probably the best out of any other hero other than like a Winston Diva combo. So putting attention towards widow is awesome, but you also need to make sure that it's not hindering your other aspects of taking an off angle and killing a support. Like, if you had the choice, right? If there's an AFK Zenyatta and an AFK Widow, and they're both going to come back at the same time, you want to kill the Zenyatta first because he's a higher value pick, and you don't need to stack as many things in your favor to kill him. So then you can focus more on the Widow, right? Like, he's easier to kill, better of a kill, and just, generally better. So in terms of the hitbox thing, aim training will help with that. It's another reason I don't suggest the Ana headshots only for most part, because you've got the weird crouching Ana hitbox, and when she scopes in, it crouches even more, and then the AIs don't move the same as like normal people do. So it works sort of, but get rid of as many variables as you can with aim hero, and then you'll be better off.
That was everything basically.
Oh, nice.